Hello, my name is Rishi Sapra. I'm a senior consultant at Altius, and today I'll be talking you through my Power BI year in review competition submission entry. So the first page we have on here is some context and background as to the data and the kind of measures and dimensions that this report contains. So what I've done is I've taken all of the technology articles written by TechCrunch and VentureBeat in 2017. The list of all of these URLs was a data source on data.world. And there's about 21,000 articles in total. So the source of this was a table with 21,000 rows, each with the article title, the article URL, etc. So I brought those into Power BI. I extracted all the text from them and identified the most common words. So some of these were keywords like technology topics, so things like AI, and some were companies, so example Microsoft or Facebook. I then did a count of each keyword and company combination against each article and assigned each of them a mention score. I then also mapped the keywords and company combinations to search terms. So for example, see the example here, Microsoft as the company and CEO as the keyword are mapped to search terms such as Microsoft CEO or Satya Nadella or Bill Gates. And what we've done then is I've looked at those search terms and I've looked those up on Google Trends to bring out a relative search index score showing how popular those search terms were in 2016 and 2017. So some of the key measures we have in this report include an average mention score showing how frequently company names and keywords are mentioned. We've got also the number of articles and the sentiment of those articles against particular companies and keywords, as well as the average index score from 2016 and 2017 for the search terms. In terms of dimensions, we have company name for 6 companies, keywords and article details such as the title and the date for all of the 21,000 articles. So in this report, I'll be primarily looking at this from an end consumer perspective, looking at the data, looking at the insights that are there. At the Data and BI Summit in April in Dublin, I'll be showing a bit more behind the scenes view in terms of looking at the approach I've taken and looking at how I've gone about building this report. So the next page of the report is the contents page. And here I've done this in the style that I've done in some of my other submissions, which is around having a scoping template as the contents. So what we can see is we have all of the various different elements here. And for each of those, we have what the user, the audience are of that dashboard page, or report page, what is the dashboard of the area, what are the key questions that report is trying to answer, that report page, what are the KPIs and measures that correspond to those questions, what can you view and filter those by, and what are the key data sources used to be able to do that. And this is a table here that we can slice by the various report pages that we have here in this slice up. So if we look at the overview page, for example, we can see the key questions that we were looking to get from this overview page. So again, this is quite helpful for someone who's not particularly familiar with the report or hasn't seen it for the first time, to be able to know what insights they're able to get from it. And I do this as a minimum on all Power BI reports as a scoping template, and I think it's quite a good idea to include it as the contents. If anyone's interested, the way I've done this actually is a HTML viewer. And so I've just put a HTML for the table, and then this is slices just on that same table. So the first content page we have on here then is going to be the timeline storyteller. So here I've used the timeline storyteller custom visual from Microsoft Research, which highlights patterns over the year. So in this first visual, in this first scene, each circle represents a month, and each segment here is a day. The item in each segment is the highest mention, keyword and company combination across all the TechCrunch and VentureBeat articles on that day. So hovering over the segment shows the keyword, and the colour of it indicates the company. So we can see lots of black and red segments in February, March and April. And this indicates that Facebook and Google have been very popular mentioned there. So they've got the highest mention scores on a lot of days. And if we hover over their icons, we can see they're things like social media, which would make sense for Facebook especially, apps, and data, talking about with Google. So as we get into the second half of the year, we can see that it gets more colourful, indicating a larger range of different companies being mentioned for the various days of the month. We see a fair bit of green here in August and November, which is Uber being in the tech news. When we hover over it, we see that a lot of the news is to do with, some of it's to do with data and technology announcements, and some of the news is also to do with their CEO, technology company CEO is the keyword, which is the news obviously after he was forced to resign. So this visual allows you to see different views of the data, and some of the other scenes in here include, if we go forward one scene, some of the other views in here also include a view by company. So here now, instead of the dimensions have been switched around. So rather than viewing month and day as a circle and color coded by company, here we're viewing each circle represents a company, and the slices here, the segments here, are the dates on which they were the highest mentioned company. And again, when we hover over it, we can see which keyword they were associated with through those articles. As we see, lots, Facebook and Google again have really primarily dominated that space, but actually where we see quite a lot with Microsoft, for example, and where Microsoft does dominate these tech headlines and get the highest mentioned keywords, it does things with keywords such as gaming, artificial intelligence, and virtual reality. We can also see, quite interesting actually, if we look at something like Apple, for example, that we get a lot of high mentions in particular times, for example, when they have their announcements, and technology announcements is one of the keywords that we've picked out there. So this next tab, the overview tab, now allows us to go into detail, to really slice and dice the data and see the actual articles here in this strip it browser at the bottom. So these top bar charts allow us to see any of the measures in this filter selection, this slicer, by the key dimensions. So by keyword, by company, by month of article, and this allows us to see which topics were most popular in which months of 2017 and which companies were associated with them. So at the moment this is filtered for Microsoft, but if I take that off, we can see by default this is showing the average search index score across 2017, and it shows that mobile is the most popular in terms of searches. And when we click on mobile, we see that Facebook and Google are some of the most searched for companies across that search term. We could also look at another measure. So if we look at, for example, the average mention score, we can see that virtual reality was the most mentioned topic in 2017. And clicking on it shows Facebook, Google, and Microsoft were most associated with it. If we pick a topic close to my heart, so cloud platform, we can then see that here Microsoft, Google, and Amazon in that order are the main companies that have been associated with mentions around cloud platform. And that's quite interesting given that AWS has been one of the market leaders for years, and Microsoft and Google are relatively new entrants and clearly are getting a lot more attention now than Amazon are. We can also make use of the drill down functionality on this page. So drilling into a particular keyword or company. So if we drill into Microsoft, for example, this is now showing that Microsoft were most mentioned. If we drill into this one, drill into Microsoft, we can see that they were most mentioned in May and October 2017. And then if we click on a month, we can then see which keywords they were mentioned with in that month. So for example, in May, we can see they were associated with technology developers, cloud platform, and which articles that they were actually specifically associated with. And all of the other charts on this page also respond to those selections. So for example, by selecting Microsoft as the company, we can now then see the top 5 search terms. So we can do that either by selecting Microsoft in here, as a drill down selection, or by using the slicers on the right hand side. So if we select Microsoft on there, we can see now the top 5 search terms associated with Microsoft and their popularity over the year in this ribbon chart here. Hovering over a month also shows us the value last year. So we can see actually, for example, Azure in July, the average search index score, and this is just a relative number, so the actual number itself doesn't really mean anything. It's relative to the other numbers on this page. It's 46.4, and last year it was 34. So we can see that's actually grown in popularity quite a lot since then. And the articles at the bottom are all those now that mention Microsoft. So, and sorted by mention score. So this Strip It browser shows us the title, a sneak preview of the content, and a picture if any of them have them. So if we click on an article, we can actually go into detail. And if we actually click on the area above just where the title is, this will actually take us to the article itself. So we can see a lot of detail here. We could use this visuals to be able to filter down to get to particular articles of interest, and then use this interactive visual to be able to actually browse through the articles, see the headlines, and click on the links to be able to go to those. On the right hand side, the panel shows the key metrics for the view of the page currently being looked at, and by default this is obviously for all keywords and all companies, though we can filter this for particular companies, one or more. And we can also look at it for particular keywords. And if we wanted to get really detailed, we could look at a particular search term and see the articles related to that. Obviously, we could also use the cross filtering here. So if, for example, if I click on this one on here, this is now going to then filter just for those articles that are looking, for example, here at Google support in October. And you can see here, these are all October articles that mention the keywords and companies associated with Google support. So I think this is really interesting. We can see a lot of insight just from this page. We can see a lot about what is going on with the technology space, what the key companies are, what the key keywords are, search terms, and also then the actual articles themselves. And this allows us to be able to filter down to the articles. But once we understand the what has happened and the why almost, we then get to the question of, well, so what? What impact does having a high mention score and a high or low sentiment have on a company? And for that, what I've done is built in another page called Company Focus, which actually brings in the stock price for various companies. Let me just reset this page back. So clicking the reset just resets it all back to the default filters. So here we have now everything. And if I drill through from Microsoft, and I use the drill through functionality to drill through to Microsoft into more detail, as in the company focus page. And what I've done here is brought in the stock price of each company, so in this case Microsoft, throughout 2017, and relating that to which articles were written about the company on the day. So if I drill through this company, we can see the share price for the company each day through the year, where there was an article written about them. On the metrics underneath, we can see the closing stock price each day, and as a comparative value, the corresponding stock price on the same date last month and the same date last year. We can also see on that date how many articles were mentioned for that particular on that particular day for that company. Across those articles, what the average mention score was and what the average sentiment score was. And we can see this is going quite fast, but we can pause this visual here and just look at those for any particular day. We can see what the stock price was, how that compares to what it was last month and last year, how many articles mentioned Microsoft in the title on that day, what the average mention score of those articles was, and what the average sentiment score was. I've also picked out the top article of that day, i.e. the one with the highest mention score of Microsoft. So using this analysis, we can see then whether there's any correlation between the stock price and the mention score and sentiment analysis of the articles written about it on that day. And obviously here again, this is the same browser, so we can go in here and click on that article and see what it shows. Now, if we fast forward through the timeline, obviously we can play it, but we can also then just here, now we can see the overall view across the whole year. So we can see Microsoft's share price soaring up, and then we can look at particular peaks or particular troughs and see actually whether those are related to news about the company on that day. So it's a way to be able to get some correlation and really see the analysis behind what impact these articles might have been having on the company. So at the moment this is defaulted for this is all for Microsoft because I drilled through from the overview page into company focus. I can go back and drill through into another company, but I could also just click the reset button here. And this now then will, it will always force me to have one company selected, but I can go and change that company and look at this same analysis for a different company, for example, Google. Press play and watch this go through the year and see all the articles and see what's happening with the stock price and the articles written about Google throughout the year. We can also perform another type of analysis on the company by switching the page to this toggle view. So this takes us to a different company focus page. It keeps the company that we have selected on. So this second analysis is around time and search terms. So the first one was around stock prices and articles, and here now we're looking at time. So we can see over time, we can see for each month the average sentiment score, the average mention score, and the number of articles on each month. And so it shows month by month what those are, and we can see of the 4,000 articles which mention Google, the average sentiment and mention score is fairly even throughout the year, but we have at December is low because we only have articles up to halfway through the year, but there was a particular spike, for example, around this period where we see quite a few articles written about Google then. And actually, if we want to see those articles, we could drill through from this into the overview page and go back and see those actual articles, what they are. On the next graph, we can see what the main keywords associated with the company are in terms of mentions and sentiment. And on the scatter chart, we can see what the average search index was across all associated search terms, both in 2017 and 2016. So we can see which search terms, such as Google Apps and Google Mobile, were popular in both years, and which have gained or lost popularity between 2016 and 2017. Lastly, we can see the search index by country. So this is a RAG status map. So the some have the higher values are in green and the lower values in red. And we can see that there's some high values across China, India, and also some of the African countries here where we see some small green segments. The cross-filtering interactivity here also allows us to see different slices of the data. For example, selecting a month in the top chart allows us to see which keywords were most popular in the articles that mention Google in that month, and which search terms were most popular in July 2017 versus July 2016. And then selecting a particular search term in here, for example, Google Apps, now then filters the rest of these to be able to see the popularity of that and articles written about it, and also where this, for that particular search term, where the most popular regions were, where that was searched from. So this last page here that we're looking at is search term focus, and this is looking at detail in a very specific search term. It defaults into Azure, but actually we can go from the overview page and drill through into here to look at any search term. And like with the company focus, we could reset this and look at it by company and keyword to be able to look for a specific search term that we're interested in. So here each search term is associated with a company keyword combination, and this report page shows some analysis over time for articles that mention that keyword and company combination associated with the search term. It also looks at search popularity by region again, and also reaches out to the Bing API to return actual search results data for that keyword. So this data is as of the last time this report was refreshed, but it essentially shows the results if you went into bing.com and searched for Azure. And if you did that, you'd also see different types of results, so images, news, and web. And we have all of those here in this Stripit browser, which we can then filter for. And now we're filtering just for image and news, but not for web results. And these are again interactive, so we can get a sneak preview of what the content of those is. And if we click on the top there, we can go to the actual link that search result points to. So on the right hand side, we can see the metrics related to that search term. And here we can see exactly where, for example, what the average search index was in 2017 and 2016. So we can see that Azure has increased 17% in terms of search popularity. There were specifically 795 articles which mention Azure, with an average mention score of 56 and an average sentiment score of 25. And all of these links work in the same way on other pages, and I encourage you to go and have an exploration around this as well. So here is an annex page. I've also just included some credits to some of the people who've helped me with this over the past few weeks. Some of whom are directly helped me, like my colleagues in Altius. So if you like the design for this, for example, you've got Taz to thank for all of that. And some have been indirect. So for example, Ibka has written a query support post on a query forum, a post on a support forum rather, showing how to strip HTML tags out from text using the query editor. And that's something that would have taken me, for example, a long time to try and figure out by myself. So just before we finish up, I just wanted to show, go into Power BI Desktop, and here I've got a Scratchpad page, which is a hidden page in the desktop, and it's here just to be able to build new visuals, so things like the Q&A and layout of report pages. So I'm going to try the new Q&A functionality in Power BI Desktop. So just double click in anywhere on the page, and here this allows us to build a visual using natural language Q&A. And it's context sensitive, and it's very aware about what you're writing. So it looks for keywords in what you're writing and relates that back to semantically what's in your data model. So if I say here, mention score. So yeah, I'll do average mention score actually. So let's do average mention score. That's average mention score. That's a measure. By company, and there's even a start typing company. It gives me all the various places in my data model that company exists, but I want it from the table companies table, the dimension table. Over time, and it says, well, which time do you want to use? I think I want to use my calendar table there, and let's see what this comes up with. So this is the visual I happen to have in this report. It's just something that I thought would be quite interesting to look at. And the idea behind this, and you can use this in Power BI Service as well, is that you could build a very specific set of visuals and insights on a report. But what the end user or the consumer of this report might want to know may not necessarily be answered by those questions, so by those graphs. So actually they can type in their own question and see that. Now that looks a little bit busy. So actually let me just filter this down for Microsoft only. And it recognizes values as well as column names. Great. And if we did this as a line chart, which is what I was kind of hoping to do, let me try that again. Average mention score for Microsoft over time. There you go. That's more what I was looking for. So let's see this in here now. Right. So now we can see this as a line chart. And actually what we can also do is then use the analyze. So I've right clicked on a particular date point and said, explain to me why that mention score has gone down for Microsoft on that particular day. And it's quite rightly actually said, well, the mention score's gone down because of different articles. And actually, this is how these are they're actually by article title. So these are the two jobs that have the two articles that have actually been written about Microsoft between those 2 days, which explains the change in the mention score. Right, so thank you for watching the video. I hope you found that useful, and I hope you get the opportunity to have a play with this report yourself. If you do have any questions or any feedback, please drop me an email, and I look forward to seeing some of you at the Data and BI Summit in Dublin, and the rest of you some other point. Thank you.